Welcome to Kinky Knots Cafe, Proactive is the Way, where we provide you tools and resources to enhance your mind, body, and spirit. Get ready, folks. Let us nurture you from the inside out. Hello, my friends. Tiffany is back with us along with two guests. Today, we will be discussing with Jaylin Knight and Terry Tucker our life designs and the actions in which we took to get to where we are today. In 2022, we kicked off a year-long discovery of ourselves. And if you missed it, please hit the pause button now. And I want you to check out, at the least, last season, episode 1 and 2. And you can also throw in there episode 21 and 22, where we developed our Odyssey plans. But we talked about designing our lives, and that was in episode 1 and 2. And in episode 21 and 22 was our Odyssey plans. And our plans, they were all about following through on our heart's greatest desires. And as we were going through that entire process, and actually even before then, we had quickly found out that finding success is not linear, but it's more about playing strategically on the jungle gym of life. And that's okay. So, through the ebb and flows of our successes and failures, leveraging our contingency and disaster recovery plans, we had eventually found our way. And instead of being reactive, we committed to taking a more proactive approach to carving out a pathway by laying the right foundations and seeking the proper resources, determined to reach our ultimate goal and create our own destiny. So, over the past year and a half, with this program, personally, I have found great success. I switched from running on autopilot to taking back my power and the controls within my own life, which has eventually moved me into spaces that have developed me and will continue to fuel my overall growth. If you want to learn more about that journey, I strongly encourage you to check out the last episode to view links to my Odyssey plans in which I shared and our year in review. At the end of each year, we do a year in review. We did one for 2022 and 2023 for Kinky Knots Cafe and Proactive is the Way. And that will hopefully shed some light on many of our successes. So our focus this month is to revisit our Odyssey plans and determine where we need to fine tune our plans. And during our last episode, I shared that I annihilated my Odyssey plans. I created, and what was really interesting to learn is that I found myself playing extremely small in this game of life. And now I am ready to flush out my third plan and begin prototyping this one. As this next plan, it will require building the right network and acquiring the right resources to successfully execute the plan and be successful. So to help me, we connected with two guests, and today we're going to bring on Jaylin and Terry Tucker to learn more about the journey that they took to find success, their prototyping experiences, and the principles in which they leaned on to turn their dreams and aspirations into a reality. So let's start with an introduction from Jaylin Knight.
Yes. So I am currently developing my career as a mindset weight loss coach. And to tell you a little bit about my professional background starts with my personal because it very much led one to the other. But as I grew up, I struggled like a lot of women with my body and with food and had all sorts of body image issues. And I wasn't very good at sports, so I really tried to get into exercise, but I found it incredibly boring. So that was quite the struggle, but it eventually led me to becoming a fitness trainer myself, which turned out to be absolutely amazing and profound and was such a great pleasure in my life. And so I've been doing that for the last 15 years, and it's totally transformed the way that I see exercise and fitness. And I took the entrepreneurial route, so I get to decide exactly who I work with. I work with other women who also, like me, weren't that into fitness, but now they've joined our community and they get to enjoy the benefits of having a consistent fitness lifestyle. So that's all been really, really great. But all during that time, as much as I loved teaching the exercise classes, I really wanted to get into life coaching, but I was a little too afraid to take on something new for a while.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until the last couple of years where I trained with positive intelligence and strengthened my mental fitness that I really developed the courage to take on a new position and embrace the unknowns and the new challenges of developing another career. But that's going well. And so here I am online now as a mindset weight loss coach.
Okay, mindset weight loss coach. And so if I wanted to know, like, what's a day in the life of a mindset weight loss coach with a client, what could I expect from you?
Sure. So I'm not quite sure day in the life, but in terms of how I work with clients, is what makes it different is that when they come to work with me, we don't talk about food right away whatsoever. And we never go anywhere close to talking about dieting or any of those old dieting kind of behaviors and things you can't have and all the deprivation. Instead, we focus directly into their mindset and how they think about themselves, about life, what kind of thoughts are going through their head on a regular basis
Mhm.
because we are already naturally as human prone to a negativity bias. And so by nature, in terms back in our survival days, we had to be so much more aware of things going wrong for us than the things that were going right. And
Mhm.
that plays out into today's world too, but it plays out in ways that we're constantly having these sabotaging thoughts and looking for things to not work out for us and not expecting things to go well. And
Mhm.
then that feels kind of bad. And so we turn to the one thing that we find soothing, which is eating,
Right.
and it just continues to exacerbate and get worse and worse and worse.
Right.
So it's the food is always just a symptom. And so we don't talk much about the symptoms. We go straight to the root cause and we talk about how your brain works, how your mind thinks, how replaying those same thoughts over and over are going to give you the same outcome. And we teach you how to change that so that you can start thinking from a more positive perspective, make it more natural. So that instead of just trying to make you jump into taking these actions, we're actually getting you to think differently so that you feel differently and you want to take different actions. And that's going to play out for a lifelong success.
Okay. That is perfect. That is right aligned with what our podcast is all about. Um, so we last year, or I shouldn't even say, is it last year? Wait a second, it's 2024,
Time flies.
yeah, 2022, when we launched, we had started a podcast about designing your life. And one of the things that we wanted to focus on was within that, or one of the things that the authors had focused on was mindset. That was like one of the first things, right? Because before you even begin to get into what your issues are, what your habits are, you have to first understand your mindset. Where are you mentally, right?
Mm.
And you don't even need a degree to do that, right? You don't need any type of um, formal education to really sit down and have an understanding as to how I think about things. And so I'm glad that you brought that up because that's what we are going to actually, a component of it that we'll actually discuss. All right, that's Jaylin. Let's learn a little bit about Terry.
Well, Toya, thanks for having me on. I am really looking forward to talking with you today. My name is Terry Tucker. I live in the great state of Colorado. A little bit about me. I'm the oldest of three boys, born on the south side of Chicago. You can't tell this from looking at me or from my voice, but I'm 6'8" tall, and I went to college on a basketball scholarship, despite having three knee surgeries in high school. After college, I'm really going to date myself now. I moved home to find a job because this was long before the internet was available to help people find employment. My first job was in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, in their marketing department. That was the good news. The bad news was I lived with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mother care for my father and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer.
Okay.
Professionally, as I said, started out at Wendy's. And then I went to work for the hospital that actually cared for my grandmother and my father. And then towards my late 30s, I made a major pivot in my life and became a police officer. And part of what I did in my law enforcement career was I was a SWAT hostage negotiator. After law enforcement, I started a school security consulting business, coached girls' high school basketball when we lived in Texas. But for the last 12 years now, I've been battling a rare form of cancer, a rare form of melanoma. And then finally, my wife and I have been married for 30 years. We have one child, a daughter, who's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and is an officer in the new branch of the military, the Space Force.
Get out of here. How
Sure.
awesome is that? Really?
Very proud.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. How is that experience? Is it exciting?
Um, I don't know if it's exciting as a lot. I mean, you look at a lot of computer screens, you're tracking things in space and things like that. She always tells me the easiest way to describe what I do, Dad, is I fly satellites. I'm like, okay, works for me.
Okay. Okay, very, very cool. That's awesome. And was there anything else that you wanted to share with regards to that?
No, I think that'll give you a little bit about me.
Ended that on a very, very good note. That was pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then now you went to college, and what was your first discipline before you got into becoming a police officer? Just curious.
It was in marketing at Wendy's. That was my first job.
Marketing. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I missed that part when you said marketing at Wendy's. Okay, very good. And then that made you, when you left marketing, what made you transit? Why did you do a 360 and get into the police academy? Law
Yeah.
enforcement.
So there is a backstory. I know my resume kind of looks like a Super Bowl went off in a room. It's just bouncing all over the place. But there really is kind of a backstory. My paternal grandfather was a Chicago police officer from 1924 to 1954. So he was in Chicago during Prohibition, when alcohol was outlawed in the United States, during the Great Depression in the 1920s and 1930s. And when the gangs, Al Capone and those guys, were sort of shooting up the town. And he was actually shot in the line of duty with his own gun. It was not a serious injury. He was shot in the ankle. But my dad, who was an infant at the time, always remembered the stories my grandmother told of that knock on the door of, Mrs. Tucker, grab your son, come with us, your husband's been shot. So when I expressed an interest in going into law enforcement, my dad was, absolutely not. You're going to college. You're going to major in business. You're going to get out, get a great job, get married, have 2.4 kids, and live happily ever after. But that's the life my father wanted me to lead. That was not what I felt my purpose was. So I had really my first major choice in my life after getting out of college. I could have said, well, Dad, I know you're dying. Sorry about that. I'm going to go blaze my own trail. Or out of love and respect for you, I will do what you want me to do. So I went into business because that's what my dad wanted me to do. And then I joke, I did what every good son did. I waited till my father passed away, and then I followed my own dreams. And I was a 37-year-old rookie police officer, which by most accounts is pretty old.
Right.
Into that line of work.
I thought there was a cutoff at 35.
Pardon me?
I said, I thought there was a cutoff at 35.
No, we had a guy in my class that was 52.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I mean, there was no cutoff.
Okay.
But one of the things I'm most proud about in my life is that I never let my dream die. I was making good money. I was in a suit and tie, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday kind of job, working at the hospital. And it was like, Okay, I could have stayed there and been very comfortable for the rest of my life, but it just wasn't my purpose. I knew it wasn't what I was supposed to do. And so I kept that dream alive for a number of years after I graduated from college. And eventually I got to it.
Okay. Well, that's excellent. Talk to me a little bit about, and this is actually a great segue to hear how your life was a little bit of a externally, it looked like a jungle gym, right? Externally to myself, individuals who doesn't know your background, it would look like a jungle gym, but there was some order, right, to it.
Yes.
But and this is actually what our conversation is about today. Right. Wow.
It
Terry,
was fascinating. Both of their stories is
I
very fascinating.
know.
You
Now,
know,
go ahead.
Jaylin took an approach where, and she probably doesn't know that she's doing this, because there is a term for what she's doing for uh mindset weight loss. It's basically cognitive behavioral therapy. It's
Okay.
like yeah, it's cognitive behavioral, changing the way you think
Mhm.
about things to change your behaviors about them to accomplish or achieve success. Um, so it's his story was fascinating. I mean, a daughter that basically gets to fly satellites and then getting to be her coach. Now, did I hear him say he's fighting a rare form of melanoma?
Yes. Yes.
Right. No,
And
melanoma is super dangerous.
yes, but would you know?
No, because he's so full of life.
He's so full of
And you know
life.
why? You know why? Because he reached back and he's blazing his own trail. That was what stood out to me from his what he had to share from his experiences.
Exactly, exactly. And I just when he shared his story, I thought to myself, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Individuals who, like you said, or like he shared, going back, blazing his own trail. And then even through him doing this, and he's experiencing a condition that many individuals would just say, this is my life. I'm done. But for him, he just continues to live life. He continues to be full of life even in this stage within his life. And I just really enjoyed listening to both of them. Jaylin has an amazing story as well because her trajectory or how she transitioned into this space is very aligned with kind of how I've transitioned into it. And then listening to his respective story of being taken off of his path and understanding that he had the capability to come back. Having the capability to not only come back, he pursued his dreams or pursued his dreams. And then later in life, even when he experienced what many would consider a negative instance within his life, he still is full of life, still moving forward. And it's such a beautiful thing. So I would like to carry on with that because, and we'll keep going with Terry more so because I want to start with Terry because he had what you would call a very diverse experience within his life. And I wanted to better understand because he ventured into different disciplines, getting some insight about that journey, about his varied experiences, and how he prototyped his way into a new career. So let's take a listen to Terry. We are on a journey within Proactive is the Way where we are helping individuals to understand how to design their lives effectively. And so I was sharing with you earlier how we were reading this book by Design Your Life with Dave Evans and Bill Burnett. And one of the things within that particular program was to really help individuals take a look at, the things that excited them, that didn't excite them. Where did they get their most flow when they were working? It went through it took a very systematic approach to helping individuals try and pinpoint their greatest desires so that they can create at the end of this entire program, like this 5-year Odyssey plan. And so we had to come up with three. At that time, I came up with two, and I think I actually just started my third one this year. I said, okay, I'm ready for the third one because we were only supposed to do one out of the three and focus on that for 5 years, but I knocked two out of the partial one that I had completed. I knocked those out of the park in a year. And I was like, "Ooh, I definitely am not dreaming big enough if I'm knocking stuff out, in a year." Um, so we created these Odyssey plans, and one of the things that we kept talking about throughout the course of the year is that we were not believers, and this is my sister and I. We are not believers that there is just one version of us. Right. When you're going through life, you have multiple versions of your life. And I can give an example where, I was in college. That was like my life, playing intramural sports, being an athletic trainer, going to school, etc. Then I had another version of my life where I was a working mom. Became a mom and I was a working mom, etc. And then I have this other part of my life where now I'm an entrepreneur. I'm still a working mom. I still have my kids. But throughout my journey, there's been different facets of me that exist, right? Loves and desires, kind of similar to what you shared, that you got back into where your heart was, where your heart stood and the desires of your heart after your father passed away. And so, you know, what I wanted to do with individuals is have a conversation about, okay, there's nothing wrong with this kind of jungle gym approach in life. We all are going to go through that. It's actually normal. And it's okay. Because you see a lot of individuals, and I call it the gladiator games, who are really, they come out of school, they're cutthroat. They don't care who they're stepping over to get to where they got to get because they feel like there's not enough, right? There's this scarcity mindset. I got to be at the top, not you. Although I will say, I have seen things changing over time with the new generation of children that are coming out, or young adults, I should say, that are coming out, which is pretty fantastic. But um, I say all of that to get back to the fact that within our lives, we're just going to have multi facets of ourselves. And so one of the questions that I was about to pose to you is a little bit off the grid, but relevant, was when you decided to get back into being a police officer, or I'm sorry, going into the law enforcement, did you ever prototype? Did you ever first try to experience what it was like prior to getting into it? Or did you just know, what, I'm going to do the academy and the academy will teach it all for me? Or actually the academy could have been a part of prototyping, if you will. But did you ever think about getting a level of experience before you fully jumped in?
I did, and I guess before I go into that, let me kind of piggyback on what you just said, because I could not agree with you more. We tend to talk about our purpose in life, and we talk about that in the singular, like it's one particular thing. And as you mentioned, it's not. It's multiple things. Same for me when I was in college or when I was growing up. It was basketball. It was athletics. That was my purpose. I ate, drank, and slept basketball. I mean, it was really what I did. And then as I got into adulthood, I felt my purpose changed. Now I wanted to be in law enforcement. And now, in all honesty, as I'm probably coming towards the end of my life, my purpose has shifted, has changed again. And it would be great if our purpose would align with our job or our occupation, but it doesn't have to. I mean, your job could be over here, it's what you do to pay the bills, but your purpose is over here. It's to paint or to write or to be a podcast host or to be an activist or whatever it is that you feel is in your heart. So back to your question now, because I think what you said was so spot on. And so many people think there's just one thing that they're supposed to do in life. And there's many things that you're supposed to do in life. Did I prototype? Yes, I did. So my wife and I get married. We moved to Santa Barbara, California. And a circular came in the mail. And I never looked at these things. I always put them in the recycling.
Okay.
But one day I happened to look at it. And there was a course offered by Santa Barbara City College that said that if you pass the course, it would allow you to apply to be a reserve police officer with any agency within the state of California. So you can imagine that discussion that night at dinner. It was like, honey, I would like to take this course, be a police officer. And my wife has been incredibly supportive. And she's like, go ahead, take the course, see what happens. So I took the course, I completed the course, and I was able to get on with the Santa Barbara Police Department, the city police department. So I would work all week at my regular job. I was a customer service manager for an academic publishing company. I would come home Friday night, put on my uniform, go to roll call, and work all night till 7 o'clock the next morning. And I would come home exhausted. But my wife tells the story better than I do. She said, you would come home just beat up, but with this big smile on your face. And she said, I knew that's what you were supposed to do. And shortly after that, our daughter was born and we moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. And I said to her, I said, look, the bug has bit me. I want to do this full time. I want to go to the Cincinnati Police Academy. I want to go through the process. And that's what I did. So yes, I did prototype it by being a reserve officer. And for those who don't know what a reserve officer is, it's just an officer that works with another full-time sworn officer. We don't work by ourselves. And so I got the chance to, sort of dip my toe in the water and see how the water was. And as far as I was concerned, the water was just fine.
It was just right. Wow.
I love his enthusiasm about his experiences. He has so much spirit and energy behind what he believes. And that's lucky in a sense, that may be by universal design, that he's had these opportunities and he was able to blaze his own trail and find something. Because how scary is that? He's from the south side of Chicago, and he probably, I think the south side is not the good side of Chicago, right?
I believe so.
Oh, okay.
But don't
go back. Okay. I'll look it up.
Right.
But his him going to Cincinnati Police Department. And just having the guts and the determination and the way he prototyped himself
into a career.
Yeah. But I can appreciate what he says about, and just like what you say, that it's not one thing. And I believe that as people, we get trapped into believing that there's just this one thing. And we need to unravel that. We need to come out of that thinking, that absolute thinking, that box thinking, that we need to be using all of our talents and our gifts. Because how silly is it actually to think that there was just be only one thing when we're like multi-talented. Like, he played basketball, and because of that, he was able to coach his daughter's team, once he had a daughter. Like, it's just, I think we're just boxed into. But if you notice, the people that are most successful, and I like to use Elon Musk, right? Because it seems like he's fearless. Like, there's nothing that bothers him. And of course, I'm sure there is, but like, it's like there's nothing that gets in his path that's going to take him off of his reality for himself, for the world, what his purpose is, or what we see his purpose as, progressive, taking us into the future,
Right.
that sort of thing. But going back to Terry, he's awesome. Like you could feel his spirit
Mhm.
and behind, you know, all of the things that he has achieved and what he's still working on.
Still achieving. Okay. That's what is so fascinating to me. And I so agree with you about his spirit. The way he came across was just absolutely, he invigorated my soul. And
I
he,
know he like made me recharge. I'm like, you get your business. You better get your business plan done this week, and you better do it. You better find a clinic.
right. But, and just to go back to how he shared when he, when he, and you also can tell he's humble, right? He's humble and he has that level of respect. And the story he shared with regards to his father, and he understood that his dream, while deferred, was still possible.
It was not a
And,
denial.
because if you think about into our world today, there's a lot of discussion about ageism and,
Mhm.
that this is it. If you don't have it by this point within your life, you might as well call it a season. And I think to myself, I'm like, first of all, where did that come from? Who said that? Who designed that? Because if we go back to what we discussed when we first started this whole initiative, is that we are multifaceted people. And in that means that if you're multifaceted, what you may have learned or understood as a teenager, your experiences are going to move you into the next season of your life. And that next season of your life required you to be at a specific point in time to learn so that you can be effective at your new role within life. And what we have to learn is that there is going to be this continual, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. You're going to be a continual learning process, a continual evolution of ourselves, because we are going to be each year and every millisecond. What I just said or learned from Terry, I just learned today. And I'm gathering all this information. So there's going to be a continuous evolution of ourselves until we die. Right. And so, yeah,
Because if you don't evolve, we die.
if you don't evolve, you will die.
Think of
That's what Ray Dalio shared, right? He said, if we are not continuously evolving, things that don't evolve will eventually die. And so, and he's a wonderful example of how when you evolve, because he said he's been living with melanoma cancer for 12 years, right?
years. I didn't hear him say that.
That's what he said. He's been battling this for quite some time. And I
Oh,
thought to myself, I'm like, you know why you are so successful at battling this condition is because you understand that through your evolution, and he's going to talk to you a little bit more. I don't want to give away some of the things that he's sharing about what he's going through. But because you are continuously developing yourself, you have hope. You are not giving up within yourself just because you have a condition. You've created this life of continuity. You're living. You're
mhm,
not dying.
mhm.
You're still growing. And so he's just such an inspiration, even
He is an inspiration, and he's so like I just love his spirit. Like
energy is just off the chain. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I don't want to give anything else away with regards to our future conversations. I keep trying to hold myself back, not to jump ahead. But yeah, so Terry definitely provided us some amazing information. Let's talk a little bit about, I want to dive into Jaylin really quick, because Jaylin, I want you all to learn about how she leveraged coaching to help in her transition into being a mindset weight loss coach. Let's take a listen to Jaylin.
Yeah, so I looking back on it, I can see that I did do prototyping, but I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time. And so, as I mentioned, I've had a small business teaching fitness for the last 15 years. And while that is definitely our main priority, I also offered coaching sessions to my clients just as an additional way to help them. And so I'd offer them a one-on-one session where we'd sit down and, just kind of ask lots of questions and really explore different things that were troubling them. And the amount of profound insights and breakthroughs that we came up with from these challenges, it was just so wonderful to see them experience that. And then the side benefit was that I was also getting a lot of my own insights and learning and growing from having these conversations and just things I wasn't expecting to benefit from in this way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say, looking back on it now, because I always knew that I wanted to get into the life coaching style, but I wasn't planning it by any means at this point. I was just trying to help out my clients. And but I recognized from having that experience and how beneficial those experiences were for both of us, myself and the person that I was coaching. It really just solidified that this was a path I wanted to take.
Right. Well, good. And so, yeah, I will admit I was the same way with regards to prototyping. Like you don't know the terms for it. I think because we're not in that space. We're not designers, right? I don't know. Maybe you were a designer. I have no idea, but I know I was not a designer. And so when I heard that concept, I was like, well, we call that in the business world interning, right? Where you go through, you get an internship or an apprenticeship of some sort. So if you want to talk about prototyping, that's kind of what we would do. But it's a little bit different, right? In the designer's world, they prototype with expectations that they are going to fail. In the business world, if you prototype in your internship, you ain't getting a job, right? So I think I like prototyping a little bit better, where you're coming into a safe space and you can kind of make all of the errors or I shouldn't say errors, they're opportunities for development, right? Opportunities.
Mhm.
So, and it should be okay to make mistakes during that time because you are learning, right? Did you have any feedback?
Oh, no, just how I mean, hers is, very, um it's just aligned with, her career, her
Right.
overall.
Very linear.
Just very linear, and I would love to see what she looked like because she looks strong from her
Doesn't
neck.
she look strong?
I was like, "You look real strong."
So funny you said that. I said the same thing.
It's like her neck looks super strong. I wonder what her arms look like. I was just like, wow.
It's so funny. And I didn't go check out because I'm sure she has some videos somewhere. But yeah, I really liked Jaylin's story. It is very aligned with her career. I mean, once she got into fitness, once she got into that space, she morphed, right? Morphed into providing more offerings for her clients. And
Her focus. So
mhm.
she does have a more linear focus. Like
Right.
that was her. It's look it sounds like that was her goal.
Right. Well, and she said it, and I think this is something that we have to be aware of as well. When we're using certain words like prototyping, these are words that are coming out of a particular industry, right? And we might be doing it within our space. For example, in the business world, I was sharing with her, it's in an internship, it's an apprenticeship, etc. In the medical space, what do you guys call it? A residency,
Residency. or yeah, pretty much residency because it's
Right.
residency for everybody now. Mhm.
Right. And so she was sharing, I really didn't think about it like this. I didn't realize that I was experimenting, but I was. I started out with providing my clients a level of service, and through providing that level of service, I started offering coaching, and then I realized they needed more. And so I decided to go back and get some certifications so that I can give them more and provide them not only just coaching with regards to weight loss, but also making sure that they had the right mindset. And so I think that when we think about our prototyping, if you will, just be mindful that it can be called multiple things. However, I will share, and I shared that with her, is that within different spaces, though, prototyping can make or break you, right? So, in the business space, if you are within an internship and you make mistakes and a lot of mistakes, right? That internship is not only for your experience to know if this is what you want to do, if this is what you want to do, or even to learn. It's also the company's opportunity to determine as to whether or not they want to hire you. Right. So just making sure that folks are mindful about that. But I will say I really like prototype. And I wish more companies, organizations, different entities, whether it be in the medical space, although I'm sure that there's some legalities that hinder individuals from permitting that in terms of the mistakes. And because in prototyping, in that world of design, taking a risk is so much easier to be risky, right? It's so much easier to really step out of your box and just think completely different without losing yourself, because it's expected. It's expected for you to fail often, and then we're going to figure out the solution. But if you do that in another space, I was sharing with her, you might be fired. You might not get an opportunity. So we have to be mindful when we are prototyping which respective industry we are in and how is that viewed, and just being cognizant of that. Did you have anything to share?
As I get older, and I know we said like we're not ageist by any means,
Mhm.
but it just seems as if it seems even more urgent for us to experience and for us to utilize prototyping, the older you get.
Mhm.
Um, I will say this, I wish you would have kind of asked them, how often are they writing things down? Like, do they have these visions? Are they prototyping, without, like goal setting, writing things down and making it, a part of their life in that respect.
Yeah.
'Cause I believe that writing things down helps you achieve and prototype, better. Like, I believe that, you accomplish things, more when they're written.
True. But if you listen to, especially with Jaylin's prototyping, she didn't necessarily know it was a prototype.
Oh, right, right, she said
Right?
that.
And I think that's how most of us go through life. A lot of us go through life not really writing things down. We have a thought, we have a vision, but we are not succinct, we are not strategic in achieving it. And so
And that's the sidebar. I was just wondering.
oh, yeah, no, but I just wanted to make sure that I addressed your question there, because that is a good point. It's common. It's common that we kind of fall into these spaces. For her, she kind of fell into growing into. So she had added the coaching. She was doing the personal fitness training. Then she added the coaching. Then she realized, oh my goodness, my clients need more, right? And so she kind of grew into it versus really kind of taking a very strategic approach to, okay, this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm going to do next, and this is what I'm going to do. And that's why I really introduced this whole designing your life a program, because I feel like if we were taught to be more intentional, if
Mm.
taught to be more strategic, we would be more progressive as a society. And I just feel like oftentimes, and I don't know, this was more so in my, in growing up for myself. I just felt like I was not taught to be this way. It was inferred. And if you don't possess very good inference skills, right, you might not realize that this is something that you should be doing, right? If you don't come from a household, right? Our mom and our dad, for example, we had a blue collar father, came out of high school, right? He came out of high school. He was what was he? A welder, right?
Yeah.
Welder.
A welder, electrical maintenance repairman, a
Yeah,
weaver.
maintenance repairman. So he didn't have any formal education. And prior to him, his mom and dad were not educated.
Well, okay, so let's go back to like formal education real quick.
Mhm.
Because you do have to have some sort of formal education with trade. So let's clarify formal education, what we mean by that.
Right. Yes. When I say formal education, I'm talking about in terms of even if they did go and get a non-traditional form of education, I don't get a sense from my upbringing that daddy planned for being a welder. When I used to ask him about his dreams and aspirations, what he shared with me is very similar to what Alex shared. He thought he was going to go play professional basketball. Ask him about that. Yeah, he shared that with me, and I was like, "Oh, so you just kind of got into this space?" He was like, "Yeah, you just kind of fell into it, right?" And so I brought that up to say we came from a background where they were not necessarily um, strategic with regards to what they were choosing in life. They
Well,
into
and
the
two, ours was very similar to Terry.
say
If you
that
think
again. Very
ours was very similar to Terry because we already had someone telling us, no, this is ABC, this is XYZ. And then we were boxed in with our thinking, right? We were only thinking, because that's the way we were taught, that I better be a doctor, I better be a lawyer, I better,
I better be an accountant. I better be someone
where your dream, what was your dream? Your dream was to be a designer.
a designer in fashion design.
Yeah, and like I don't like to really reminisce. I don't know why. I
Don't reminisce and hold grudges. Reminisce and you use that information to help propel you, to help like what Terry did, right? He could have he kept and he held on to his dream. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about that later on. But he held on to his dream and he continued.
right.
He leveraged that as a fuel for him to continue to pursue it. Whereas I feel like as we were growing up, it was scary, because it was thought that is not a reputable profession. You're not going to make any money doing that. How could you think about being an NBA star? Only 1%, 2% people who go into it, which is true,
Well,
right?
looking at the statistics, that part kind of aligned with the truth.
Absolutely. I'm not. But I think we have to let individuals follow their path,
Yes.
find out for themselves.
Yes. And that's why I do that with Taryn.
Yeah, you have to let.
Find your own you find it because another thing too is because don't use me as your excuse later on.
Mhm,
So I'm gonna allow you the freedom,
mhm.
I'm allow you that liberty.
Well, not even
Then
using.
when it gets to a point though,
Mhm.
maybe if it's solicited, I'll give you my advice. But I've even grown away from giving unsolicited advice because I'm getting to the point where I'm understanding people want to, you know, invent themselves.
Mhm.
So it's not necessary unless, someone asks, because people don't really want to learn from one another.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, historically, people have not. I shouldn't say. I think we are evolving. We're kind of shifting.
Yes.
There.
We are shifting. We are shifting. We are shifting. And because if you don't learn from one another, your trajectory with regards to where you want to go and is going to be extremely slow. And why would you want to go through the painful process of the learning, the going back to the drawing board,
Right.
etc.? Why would you want to go through that if someone has already gone through that, right?
Right. And I don't understand that, but that's a whole nother conversation for another day.
It's
I could talk
relevant though. It is
relevant. I don't know why as humans we do that. Like why you have an exemplar, right? Like you have someone who has told you, this is I'm telling you, this is what's gonna happen.
right.
And you still gotta try it out for yourself.
Mhm. Now, in some instances, it's okay to do trial and error, but I think for the most part, if we took a sample size, right, 1, 2, or 3 folks and went and interviewed them, and not when I say an interview, I'm not saying like, for a job opportunity, but very similar to what they mentioned within this prototyping experience. Take a few folks and you go and you have a conversation. You go and have a conversation with regards to, hey, what was your experience like? What was your successes? What were your failures? If you had to do something differently, what would you have done, etc.? I think that helps you, even if you do decide, well, I'm going to do it, but these are some of the things that I'm going to do differently from what they said. Like, I
Right.
think that's okay. I think, but we don't always have to go through every single thing and bump our head every single time in order to find success. We definitely can lean on each other because, and I'll share this a little bit later on when I'm talking with Terry, is that, we can learn and grow from each other. And I
Right.
think it's a part of who we are and what we are supposed to do. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. So let's go ahead. We're going to jump into the next question. I was sharing with Jaylin, and we were sharing earlier how prototyping in the world of business could make or break your career. We're going to take a listen to Jaylin and learn a little bit about the results of her prototyping experience because I really wanted to know if she had any successes or failures and how did she manage them.
Sure. So, in my so-called prototyping experience, I I don't remember failures on it specifically. I'd say the closest thing I can consider to a failure is that I put off getting into becoming a coach for so long because I was scared. And so in that respect, like had I actually been designing and prototyping and knowing like I'm gonna test this out and recognizing how much success I was having, then I could have built up a lot more courage to do this much longer ago.
Mhm.
That was not my experience.
Right. No,
uh,
that's a good point. That's a
yeah,
very good point. Sometimes if we don't do that prototyping, we might be holding off on a gift that we have, stored within us that should have been given a long time ago.
that's my
Right.
experience.
Okay. Okay. Well, I am glad that you finally made the leap and
Yeah,
said,
me too.
"Hey, I'm just going to do this and see where it takes me." And then that piece you shared about the fact that you grew, right, and not grew in terms of just being a coach, but personally. Is that what you mean in terms of learning from your clients? It helped you personally.
Yes. And I think that's so much from just the coaching model of just asking open-ended questions and like everybody just kind of lifts up, right? So even though I was helping them and helping them discover new things, they were helping me discover one, how to be a better coach, which was great, but also just different insights into them so that then I could then take that to my classes and then treat other people in certain ways and like just recognizing and just understanding people so much better than I already did. And also understanding myself so much better, understanding how to communicate better. So, yeah, there were tons of side benefits that I did not expect and were I'm really happy to have had.
Very good. Very good. Well, I'm glad that you had those positive experiences. And even what I won't call it negative because I call it constructive, constructive feedback, constructive criticism. Oftentimes folks don't like that word criticism, but I'm always like, no, it's good. You want people to give you that feedback so that you can find a way to improve. Because if you don't get it, you'll be walking around thinking you're the SHIT
Mhm.
and you're not, you
Yeah.
know?
And for his new clothes and all.
Yeah, no, really. You're walking around and people will be like, she thinks she's the stuff, etc. And you're like, no, I just really haven't gotten really good feedback. 'Cause I don't know that I'm doing this. Because, sometimes you got to have somebody who's on the outside looking in
Mhm.
to help guide you along that path to improve.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And I think a lot of people make assumptions that folks do know. Cause I do. I see a lot of folks who walking around. I'm like, she don't know she doing that. He don't know. He don't know. Like and I don't know if it's because of age, because I'm more mature and I can see it, but I have so much grace for a lot of people, because I'm like, I now put myself in their shoes and I'm like, he grew up in a home where he had helicopter parents and they was always telling him he was the best and he does, so I don't think he knows, and so maybe I'll be the one to tell him. I've lost a lot of friends, but that's all right. I'm sure hopefully over time they've found their way and improved. Yeah, you have some thoughts on Jaylin?
I like what she said about how each thing that she has encountered, each experience that she's had, that it has enabled her to make better connections with the experience she wants to continue to have. So those you know, and think for me connection is huge, right? Like if I don't feel connected to something, it's like what you used to do to me when I would sing and I would just be singing, but I'm not connecting with people or connecting with my audience or whatever. That is is powerful in a sense because if you're not making connection, you're probably not having an impact.
Mhm,
And then it goes into, that feedback, right? Like,
mhm.
I appreciate feedback. I know people probably don't think that I do because I'm so vocal and I'm like, super outspoken.
Mhm.
Um, but I appreciate when people put me in my place or tell me like, because I feel like, oh, I like that. Somebody told me I did something. Kim, she told me I did something. And I was like, I did not know I was doing that. I am so sorry. Like if my personality is overbearing, which some people's personalities are overbearing, and I'm probably one of those at times, but I'm
Gotten
humorous,
better.
huh?
You've gotten a lot better.
Yeah, like it kind of I did not know that it was causing people to shrink around me.
Mhm.
I'm thinking, let's, be this what we're doing. Proactive is the way. Let's be, outspoken. Um, but it was really making people scared, I guess.
Yeah, it could turn people off, and I shared with you in our growing up together that I used to always walk on eggshells with you because I just never knew, like, is this gonna make her upset? And because I'm not
But
trying.
I think people because of conditional thinking, right? We have been conditioned to believe certain things about certain people, certain groups of people. And I think it just goes along with that whole aggressive Black woman theory. I really do. We've been brainwashed to believe that because I have an opinion and because of the way I deliver my opinion, that
It's
I must be
delivery.
angry. Yeah, it's the delivery, but at the same time, like just with being outspoken, I guess you're saying it's the delivery. But
Mhm.
if you take the delivery piece out of it and you just listen to what the person has to say,
Mhm.
I mean, you can experience growth. If you take away the, feeling personal about what the, you know, person has to say, because I've grown to do that. Like I look for what you always say, the silver lining in what someone has to say,
Mhm.
uh, so that I can
Right,
provide them grace and they can provide me grace.
mhm, and actually, Jaylin's gonna she's gonna talk a little bit about that, but yeah, you're right. If we assume positive intentions,
Right,
going to go back to that, I always say that,
right,
assume positive intentions versus
right.
a negative intention when someone spoke to us. I
Mhm.
think that our experience with that respective interaction would end on a positive note. And I talk about the law of reciprocation. If we start to look at things more positively, maybe we would see it differently. Because, like you just said, a lot of us have grown up to have a perception of a particular group of people when they speak, because we speak with a lot of passion, right, behind our voice. Or just think about it. When anytime you go to a foreign country,
Yeah, it
that's
look like
I
people
really, oh
it
my
looks like they're arguing and they're not.
yes, and I'm like, "Oh, are they mad at each other? I don't understand." And they are not. Or I used to tell, when we used to have these family gatherings, and my ex-husband was West African, or from Senegal, and he's West African, and they would be so animated, and I was like, and they was not even speaking in English, so that just made it even worse for me. And I'm just sitting in these environments, and I'm like, what is going on? Are they angry? And they weren't. They literally were having a very open conversation, and no one was there was no animosity. There was really no, at the end, they're like, yeah, get a glass of tea or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, now this is quite fascinating. And so I just feel like, if we kind of took that approach where when we saw a group of individuals who was from a different culture or a different ethnicity, that we assumed positive intention until we gathered further information. I think we're so quick to respond,
Mhm.
right? We're so quick to
Evident.
we don't take the time to get the evidence, right? To take the time to really scope out the scene to make sure that, okay, is this really an attack on me, or are they really caring about me? And their delivery is, I'm seeing their care as anger, and it's really, like, you got to get your stuff together. I don't, you know what I mean? It's just that passion that
Mhm,
in how they deliver it, that
mhm,
we are misinterpreting,
mhm.
right? So I think that's something that we have to be mindful of. Anything else you wanted to share with regards to Jaylin?
Um, no. Mm.
All right. All right. Well, let's connect back in with Terry and learn about his successes and failures.
I didn't know what I didn't know, in a lot. I mean, taking a class, just like going to law school doesn't make you a lawyer. It just allows you the opportunity to go into a firm or to set up your own shop and figure it out as you go. Same thing with the police academy. I mean, you don't, I remember our defensive tactics instructor used to tell us, it's like, remember, when you get out there, you don't know anything. Just because you have completed the police academy, don't run out there and think you know everything about law enforcement. Find the people, find the mentors who will teach you how to do certain things. And I remember when I was a reserve, my training officer and I pull up, we get dispatched to an automobile accident. And we're kind of securing the scene. And one of the drivers comes up to me and says, "Hey, I live right there. I really got to go to the bathroom. Can I go to the bathroom?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, sure, no problem." And my training officer was like, "I can't believe you let this person leave the scene of an accident." Well, it's right there. They just wanted to go, and I'm all the things you don't think of, like what did they have on them that they needed to get rid of before, we found it, or whatever the situation was, that yeah, that was a big mistake on my part. And okay, I'll tell you right now, I never made that mistake again. Nobody ever left the scene of an accident. I mean, fortunately, nobody got hurt, and if they had something we didn't get it, okay, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I mean, the road to success is paved with failure, and people who don't think that anybody who you look at as successful, whether it's a musician or a doctor or whoever it is, a teacher, whoever you feel is really good, I promise you, those people failed. And they failed multiple times. And you should fail, especially when you're young. You should fail as much as you can because it means you're extending yourself. You're getting outside your comfort zones. You're doing things that you don't know anything about, and you're trying to figure life out. So many people don't do that. So many people, there's a entrepreneur by the name of Ed Milet, and he talks about the 4 types of people in the world. And he said the first type are the unmotivated. And he said that's the vast majority of people that you will encounter in your life. He said the second group are the motivated. He said it's kind of a carrot and stick approach to life. If I do this, I will get that. It's a life simply based on motivation. It's kind of low level, but it works for a lot of people. The third group he talks about are the inspirational people. The word inspiration coming from 2 words, in spirit. If you're an inspirational person, you move people with your energy. And then the last group he talks about are the aspirational people, where people aspire to be like you. And whenever I speak to groups, sometimes, if it's a good crowd, I'm like, all right, show of hands. How many people are unmotivated? Nobody raises their hand. But you believe Milet, that's the vast majority of people. People just, I'm just kind of muddling through my life, and I'm okay with that. Right. I'm not, and I know you're not. I've talked to you, long enough to know that you're very high energy. You want to get things done in life, but so many people just kind of muddle through their lives.
Right. Well, I would tell you, you say that, and I'm glad that you noticed that about me, because I will say that there's a truth and a lie in that. And I'll say that, and I say that because the reason why I started this whole podcast is because I just was never proactive in my life. I literally flowed with life. And what I mean by that is that whichever way the wind blew is the way Toya went. And I don't know if it came from when I was a child. I was trying to tell my mom a couple of days ago, but she got so offended. I think she didn't understand what I was trying to say, was that, they really told me who I was supposed to be. They're the ones who guided me and said, no, you can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. And so, well, what can I do? And I was sharing with her that was like our life. I said, well, for me, they really did that with me. And I was the middle child. I don't know why I got that type of treatment. Maybe because my younger sister was too loud and my older brother was super independent. So you weren't about to tell. And then I was just the chill one. Right. And so they used to tell me who I was going to be, etc. And I told folks, I said, that really kind of hurt me because I didn't end up becoming at all what I thought I would be. Like you, I hear you and you're like, and I went back and did it. I'm like, I'm too old to go back and do that. I wanted to go to fashion and design school. I looked up at a school. I was going to Milan, Italy, and I was going to go to fashion design school. And my father was like, no, you're not. You will not go. Not on my dime. Not if you want me to pay for it. Right. I tell folks this story all the time. And that's why I started this, because I was like, I want people to be more proactive. I want them to be more ambitious. I want them to talk to, like how you find a mentor, and really get out to better understand what are the desires of your heart. Because never at the end of a day or at the end of your life, should you say woulda, shoulda, coulda, right? That's what my basketball coach, he was like, this is the final game. No, woulda, shoulda, couldas. And I love them. Coach Ryder. But he used to tell us that, and I was like, God, I don't want my life to be like that. So I don't know where you place that in terms of a motivator, unmotivated to motivator, but I felt like I was like this in between. But I had a lot of spirit, a lot of, it's always been in me. Anytime you give me something to do, I'm running with it, right? I, 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 I can do anything. I know I can. I put my mind to it, I can do it. But I want people to understand that, within their lives, they have the capabilities to do anything. And that it all takes just that internal belief, that internal desire. And even if it falls outside of what your family has an expectation, dare to be different, dare to challenge the status quo. Because at the end of your life, you do not want to look back and say, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? So I'm really happy to hear that you took your life by the reins and said, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and I'm sure that has made all the difference.
Think what was important there that he said, was about mentorship. So again, that's about going back to connections and networking.
Mhm.
Um, I definitely do not wanna leave here, with that whole woulda, coulda, shoulda, you know? I don't wanna leave any rock unturned. But, I've always been like that. I pretty much, have lived, fearlessly, I think,
Mhm.
for the most part. I think with age, I am getting a little bit, apprehensive, with some things that ordinarily I'd have just been like, I'm doing that. I worry about the consequences later." You know what I mean?
Right.
But, that was, he has profound insight, and then, I just like just like what he said, he's a spirit. He is inspirational. So, along those group of people, that author, those 4 people, those author and what was the author's name of that book? Ed Millett?
Millet. I bel
Millet?
I believe I don't know the spelling.
Yeah, well, he falls under the inspirational in spirit, because he definitely has, I just resonate with his, spirit, uh, both of your guests really, but, what he has to say has it has impact. It, definitely, provides insight to gosh, what is the word I'm looking for? He just provides really good insight. Let's just leave it like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, all right. Well, I spoke enough there. Hopefully, you all got my gist and how I felt about what Terry shared. I wanted to jump into, we are always sharing tools, resources, especially on our show here within Proactive is the Way. And I wanted to get some insight from our guest on some of the resources that they leveraged to help them find success, to help them as they navigate it through life. So let's listen to Terry, and then we'll take a listen to Jaylin.
I mean, one of the things I did, I've always enjoyed the law. I find it interesting. I find it fascinating. And when I graduated from college, everybody was getting MBAs, a Master's of Business Administration, MBA. And I was like, that didn't really interest me. So I was the knucklehead that said, okay, I'm going to work full time and I'm going to go to law school full time. So I'm going to work until 5 and then I'm going to go to law school from 6 to 10 every night and 3 nights a week. And then the other nights studying. I did neither well. My job suffered and I ended up not necessarily flunking out, but being asked not to come back to law school. But I got 2.5 years of law school in. So while I don't have a law degree, I learned a lot about the law being in law school. And that kind of, I think, fostered that, yeah, that law enforcement thing. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. You can apply what you know. And that was one positive about being a 37-year-old rookie police officer. I had some life experience.
Right.
I was able to talk to people. Even today, occasionally people will reach out and say, I want to go into law enforcement. What do you suggest? And I always tell them, put your devices down. Go out on the street and talk to the homeless person. Go up to the penthouse and talk to that person. Because if you can talk to people in that line of work, you can be successful in it. If the only way you can communicate is on a little screen where you're texting back and forth, you're going to be miserable at that job, because that job is interacting with people on a personal level, not on a digital level. And so I very much started at law school. Education has been very important. I got a master's degree when I was with when I was with the Cincinnati Police Department. It didn't get me any more money. It didn't get me a promotion. It was just, I wanted to know more. I wanted more information. Always wanted to be a lifelong learner. Always wanted to be curious. That was one thing. When I was a hostage negotiator, they told us, always use your curious voice.
Mhm.
Always kind of, oh, really? That kind of thing as a negotiator. And that fell right in with what I wanted. I want to learn more. I want to know more. I wasn't satisfied with just this. What else can I learn? What other trainings can I go to? So went to a ton of training when I was in law enforcement. And that was just because that was my purpose. I wanted to learn more. I wasn't satisfied with just the status quo. So that was big. A book that I will recommend to your audience is this book. It's called Legacy.
Okay.
It's written by a man by the name of James Kerr, and he embeds with the New Zealand national rugby team. They're called the All Blacks because their uniforms are all black, but they are the most successful sports franchise in any sport in any country of all times. And I couldn't put the book down. I mean, if I opened it up, it would be nothing but highlight stuff, and things like that. But it was about character. It was about humility. It was about things that resonated with me as a person and also as a police officer.
Okay. That is amazing. Okay. And it's by James Kerr, and it's called Legacy.
Legacy. Yeah.
All right, folks.
Kerr. Yep.
All right, folks, definitely check that out. I have to check that out as well. And it focuses more on character, or that team and their plight within becoming who they are today.
It does. I mean, I think back on my own life, and I would have a job interview, for example, and you would do your research, and you would know the people, and you would know the industry,
Right.
and you would go in and you think, oh my gosh, I better know the answer to every question that they ask me, or I don't stand a chance at this job.
Mhm.
What the All Blacks say is, when they're bringing a coach or a player on,
Mhm.
we don't expect you as an individual to have all the answers, but we expect you to work within the team to come up with the appropriate answer. And I think, boy, what a different way of looking at that. It's like, you don't expect me to know everything. And then the character part, I remember I was interviewing for a marketing job, and I was meeting with the senior vice president of marketing, and we spent an hour and a half in this interview. And we talked about my entire life from the time I was born until the time I graduated from college.
Wow.
And at the end of the interview, I asked him, I said, I've got to ask you this. I've never had an interview like this. You never asked me one question about marketing. You never asked me one question about business, my background, anything. I said, why did you do that? He said, well, I've got plenty of people around me that will tell me whether you're good at marketing, whether you would be a good fit for our team.
Right.
He said, but I want to hire people of good character. And I believe character is developed in the first 20 years of your life. And character is caught. It's not taught. So you're not going to read a book on character and say, okay, I got a great character. You're going to watch how people handle situations. And you're going to say, boy, I really like the way she handled that. Or boy, he didn't handle that very well at all. And that develops and builds your character. So, again, thinking about the weirdest job interview, I didn't get the job, by the way, but the weirdest job interview I ever had was talking about character, and I didn't even know about it,
Right.
just interesting ways of trying to get the right people into your organization.
And that's very true. I worked in HR for 20 years, and when we would interview or do pre-screening of individuals, we did as well talk a lot about them from a personal perspective, because a lot of companies, when they are looking to hire you, it's more about, do I really want to be in this space with this person? 8, 9, some 10, 40, 60 hours a week sometimes. And so it is about the character. And if you possess the right type of character, that we can develop a good working relationship. Because you can always be taught. You can always be trained and to be an effective employee. But that character piece, if you're missing that, you know, definitely we're not trying to and hire someone else because nobody want to work with you.
Right.
Right. So that's awesome. There was another piece that you said with regards to just continual education. One of the things that I used to tell my sister, who's a co-host with me on the Proactive is the Way, is she's a consummate learner. And I was telling her, I said, you never stop. Like, she's in doctoral school and just consummate, continuous. And she really inspires, because I'll be honest with you, I had never thought to apply to doctoral school. And that was okay, because I get my education through other means. I do things like this. I read books. I go to training, seminars, different things of that nature. And I think we need to be mindful of that too. Everything does not have to, in terms of education, doesn't have to be a formalized. It can also be, that non-traditional form of education, as well. So, but she inspired me. I was like, so I applied to doctoral school. I got accepted. I was like, oh,
Congratulations.
wow. Yeah, thank you. I'm still struggling though. I'm like, is this something I really want to do? And it's actually within my discipline. But I have transitioned, as we were talking about with regards to the jungle gym, I've transitioned into another space that's not HR related, leadership training, etc. But so I'm still thinking about it. But yes, thank you so much. I'm excited that I had got accepted into the program. But you're always going to be learning, even up until the day you die. And I want folks to get comfortable with that whole notion, because even when we're transitioning, we're going to learn about, what that experience is like. And you'll find it's, from my perspective, I don't think it's it, how do I want to say? You're probably like, are you going through death? Shut up. What do you know about it? Because I've been seriously ill before. And so, you have those thoughts that go through your mind. And even while you're going through and you're having all these thoughts, oh my gosh, what are my kids going to do? I have 4 beautiful children. I don't want anybody else raising them, different, so many different thoughts. And then as you're going through this flow of emotions, you're learning how to control those emotions, and you're learning about, okay, well, you know what? Things might not go how you want them to, but what you can do, what do you have the capabilities to do? You have the capabilities to provide your children the best, to help build their character, the best advice that you have the capability to create a podcast such as this, so that they can come back and continue to watch you, and you are creating a legacy of yourself and things that they can fall back on in the event that they, are like, oh my gosh, I'm depressed. Oh my God, I don't know what to do for this career move. You will have a catalog of resources for them. So, so as you're going through the process, you're learning, and it's nonstop, and so it's a beautiful thing. And one that I tell folks on our podcast, definitely embrace it and don't stop. Don't.
Absolutely. I would totally agree with you on that. Kids are like sponges, and they see things, they hear things, they do things. You want to be a person of good character. You want to give your kid, everything you possibly can to to be the best person they can be. But there's a point in time where that is a transition from being a parent of a child to being a parent of an adult. And that's an entirely different relationship. And especially, I mean, I don't know how old your kids are, but I have a 28-year-old daughter. And so it's different now. She's married, but we still talk all the time, and she still calls my wife and I for advice, which I'll never forget. When she was at the Air Force Academy, she called home one day and she said, "Mom and Dad, I am so glad I have the relationship with you that I do, because so many kids here hate their parents." And I thought, okay, thank you, God. And I feel sorry for those kids that don't
We
get along
did
with their parents.
something right.
Yeah.
That's my father. He always tells me, he says, "Toya, let me tell you," because I had got a divorce and I was like, I cannot believe I'm getting a divorce. I'd never imagined in 100 years that I would be married and get divorced. Because when I do things, I am all in. Okay. I'm all in. When I commit to it, I'm all in. And so when it's, transpired and I was like, oh my God, I got to get a divorce. What am I going to do with my children, etc. And one of the things my father said, he said, "Let me tell you something. Focus on your kids."
Mhm.
It was like, if you can get them halfway right, life will be pretty good.
Yep.
Because he said, because, and I think that's a part of our life. And another reason why I'm doing proactive is the way is because I think we all should. A part of our design is to lead the next generation, to raise up the next generation. I've never looked at my life as me, 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 although I might say that a lot. But I do look at it as an inclusive of and a oneness of humanity. And I think a part of our lives is to really give back one to the other. And, some folks can take your advice, etc. And so it's not for everyone, and that's okay. Right. But I think that is a facet of who we are. Which is, and you're starting to hear about legacy, leaving a legacy, leaving your mark, etc. For when you transition on, because it is important that we help society to be progressive, and continue to be progressive, continue to teach people to think critically, judge, but judge without condemnation. You want to make sure that we're prepping our future. And so, as it relates to my children, it's something that I commend you that your daughter has basically gave you the seal of approval. When your daughter can say that, oh, I bet that just made your heart melt.
It did. I mean, my wife and I several times will sit around and be like, "How did we get so lucky?" I mean, we don't deserve this, but we'll certainly take it. So
Yes, you do.
I like Mr. Tucker. Does he speak some Officer Tucker?
Officer
Does
Tucker.
he? So wait, so he's retired?
Yes, he's retired, but he's a motivational speaker, and he has
Yeah.
put his website on, or not his website, but his email address. So if anyone wants to connect with him, can definitely reach out. And he's wrote a few books, a couple books. He's in the process of writing another book as well. So you guys will have to go check him out. He's also on LinkedIn, so you can check him out there as well. But yeah, he's amazing.
He is. He's fascinating. I just like his energy. Like, it's just like this person is authentically happy and he's believable. And most of everything that we're doing, we just have to get buy-in, right?
Mhm.
Even with our prototyping, even with our designing our life, we have to we even have to buy in to what and continuously buy in to um what it is we're telling ourselves that we want to do, you know to accomplish and achieve those achieve goals.
Well,
But
yeah, especially if you want to influence the future. And
yeah,
for him, you can tell he has complete buy-in to what he's doing, and he believes in and is very
and
passionate.
he can get others to buy in. Yeah,
Exactly.
he's good. But yeah, I'm gonna check that book out. Of course, I do audiobooks, the James Kerr Legacy.
Yes.
Um, I'm gonna continue to look up Terry. Um, because you know what else is fascinating about him too is that he also has a story. So like also like battling this cancer, and melanoma can be devastating as it was, Quentin's grandparents had both of them had melanoma. That's what they died from.
Oh, wow.
Complications from skin cancer.
Mhm.
Yeah. So because it metastasizes, it invades the body. But I mean, it's not necessarily something people with melanin have to worry about, but definitely fair skinned people have to worry about that. But yeah, I checked that book out. I'm gonna listen to it on my way. I got like 5 Audible credits. Look,
Okay.
look at me. A whole Audible subscription I keep forgetting about. Now I got all these credits and I need to and so I'm gonna purchase that.
Well, use them up, use them up. And while you think about the next book that you're about to read, let's check in with Jaylin real quick and hear about some of her resources and things that have influenced her within her life and career.
My biggest influence actually comes in the form of a CD from Abraham Hicks. And the CD was gifted to me at a time of transition in life. I was leaving from the corporate world, deciding what to do next. But that's just kind of the way it is. But Abraham Hicks, they teach the law of attraction. And I was new to learning about the law of attraction about the same time, but I never Abraham Hicks helps me understand it in ways that I just didn't understand before about how much we create our own reality and we're responsible for our own happiness. And we can absolutely create anything that we want in life. And that has definitely influenced me so much. It helped me uh, feel confident to leave a corporate career with a nice paycheck to start into the fitness world full time, and then to take the entrepreneurial route, start my own business. I
Mhm.
originated that in Boston, but then I decided to move to San Diego and start all over again. And the whole time I was like, it's going to work. I can make it work. It's going to work. And that is confidence and courage that I would not have had without that influence.
Absolutely. I appreciate and mindset, right? You had the right mindset to do this, right?
Absolutely.
I tell folks because went into the fitness world, but I was kind of I wasn't forced into it, but it was a path that I never envisioned. I didn't envision this world at all. So my trajectory in this space has been a little bit slow. But that's all right. I'm learning and growing in this space. But yeah, you have when you're having the right mindset and you put your mind to doing something, it is quite amazing at what you can accomplish. Something that I also noticed is if you announce, and people tell me this all the time, they say, Toya, move in silence. Don't tell folks your business, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I really hate that I can't tell folks what I'm doing. And I say that because what has really helped me is telling folks what I'm doing. Because you know what it does? It make you accountable.
Uh-huh.
Right? You like, oh, I done told somebody something. I better get that, I better get that done. And so I was telling people. I love telling folks I got to do something because it holds me accountable. And accountability, mindset, and accountability are just like two things that you truly need in order to bring things into fruition, which is
To create.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, I love Abraham Hicks and I love The Secret. The law of attraction is very relevant. And if you learn how to use it, it is very beneficial. But you have to be, again, the word you used earlier, intentional about what it is and what you're trying to align with. Because if you're all over the place with law of attraction, you might attract some total BS.
Yeah.
Well, um, um, thinking positively, um, and uh, gosh, that's awesome. Abraham Hicks has like a whole YouTube series, I think, or not a series, but has a lot of content on YouTube.
Okay.
listening to that, getting, some insight and inspiration from Abraham Hicks. So yeah, those those are the kind of influences and the kind of connections and networking that you need to make to be successful, or to be that person who's like, you know what, once you get tired of the organizational politics and you're like, I could actually just do this by myself.
Mhm.
I have enough, fortitude to, you know, step out and step on my own, um, to make things happen. But I think we get so worried about, failing, when we branch out on our own and something is not already, designed for us,
Mhm.
is the reason why we don't, participate in our own design.
Yeah.
Um,
Now that is a good point. Fear of failure. And we're actually about to chat about that here in the next as we close things up. Of course, I could not let our guests get away without discussing principles and providing words of wisdom to our next or for our next generation. Here's what Jaylin had to share, and we will close it with Terry.
Absolutely. And so the one that has definitely led me so well, as I mentioned a little bit before with Abraham Hicks and the creating your reality, and just taking radical responsibility for everything that happens in my life, whether it's positive or not so positive. And, knowing that I am the one that creates it. And that can feel like a double-edged sword sometimes when things aren't going well and you have to sort of accept that you're not getting it, you're not aligning with the path that you want to be on.
Mhm.
And in the past, I have historically been very hard on myself when I get out of alignment. And unfortunately, that only makes the creation process even harder. And so those are some lessons that I have been learning. And another guiding principle that is a more recent one, and I learned this from the positive intelligence training I did as I became a coach, but it's called the sage perspective. And that is that absolutely everything can be turned into a gift or opportunity.
Mhm.
And so whether it goes the way you wanted it to or goes some other way, you can always find some lesson to learn or some insight, some inspiration. And in that way you cannot get it wrong.
Right.
And so that really just helps me, and it's definitely helped me as I'm taking on this new career venture.
Mhm.
But knowing that I can get out there, I could not be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect anyway, but
Mhm.
knowing that I'm starting something new and I'm learning and I'm figuring it out as I go, and I gotta say, like, it's going better than I expected, which is always great because I was so nervous about getting started.
Mhm.
But as I also mentioned, I it took me so long to get started that I was really prepared
Right.
by the time I got out here.
He was like, well, it's now or never. Right.
Yeah.
Well, good, good. Okay. Yes, I appreciate that. And with regards to a message, right? That because this particular podcast is all about being proactive. I share all the time. I was not so proactive. I swear, as God is my witness, I just kind of floated in life. I was a very artsy person, so I just knew I was going into that space, and I walked in and breathed and was art. If the how do I want to say the stereotype for an artist. So I just kind of flowed with life. But anyways, so I want to talk to the young folks, right? I want to help young people be more proactive in their approach in life. And so if you given what you know now, if you had to leave a message for the next generation, what are some lessons or principles that you would leave to ensure that they stayed on the right path to success?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to borrow another one from Abraham Hicks. Like I said, they've been so influential in my life, but to let everyone know that they're born with a guidance system, that you can tell by the way you feel whether you're on the path for you or not. And if you're feeling positive emotions, then keep going in that direction. But if you're feeling any kind of negative emotion, then that is your indicator that there's something's not right, whether you need a different mindset about it, a different approach to it, something. but you get to know, and that's whether you're making career choices or food choices or anything in between. You're
Mhm.
born with that, and you can trust that intuition that you already have.
Mhm. Intuition is so key. We don't train ourselves to listen to that
In
and to
fact, we do the opposite, right?
do
Or
the exact opposite, and I find it very disheartening because it's a given skill and an innate skill that we all have been given, and the fact that we don't help to train us to better understand how to leverage it is disturbing, because I think a lot of individuals, and I'll go to why I think we don't do that. It's because they want folks to lean on, whether it be a religious institution or a particular law, but never what is internal. And
right.
we have an internal guide that speaks to us, and for the life of me, I do not understand why we choose to ignore that. So that's a magnificent point that you brought up. And I hope that our young folks of today take heed, to understand and know that you yourself have an internal guide to lead you on the right path to success as well. All right. Let's close it out with Terry and get his thoughts and perspectives as it relates to principles and words of wisdom.
I have seen a lot of people in life, and we were talking about this earlier, that seem to think that we're all born empty. And that when we get out of school and get into life, whatever that looks like for us, that then our job is to fill up our empty self, to get a great education, to get a great job, to make a lot of money, to drive a nice car, to live in a nice house, to have the latest gear.
Right.
And what I found, and somehow by doing that, you will be happy and fulfilled. And what I found is it's just the opposite. We're not born empty. We're born full. We're born with everything we need to be successful in our lives already inside of us. We just need to find it, pull it out, and use it to our benefit. So, our job in life should not be to fill ourselves up. Our job should be to empty ourselves out, certainly for the betterment of ourselves, but also for the betterment of our families, of our friends, of our communities, of our country, etc. And it's just a different way of looking at life. I'm sure your audience remembers Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, Mr.
Yes.
Rogers' Neighborhood.
Mhm.
Well, Mr. Rogers educated so many kids on public television, including me growing up. When Fred Rogers died in 2003, his family was going through his effects and they found his wallet. And inside his wallet was a scrap piece of paper on which Mr. Rogers had written four simple words: life is for service. So, keeping that in mind, my life should be about something that's bigger than me. And I learned that in sports. I learned that from being part of a team, to be part of something that's bigger than yourself. You realize on a team that if you don't do your job, not only do you let yourself down, but you let your teammates down, your coaches down, your fans down, etc. And if you think about it, the biggest team game that we all play is this game of life.
It is the game of life. Wow. You know what? You just ended on an amazing note. You you hit that is very, very beautiful. There was one component that I want to go back to on the Mr. Rogers. The last word that you shared. Can you articulate that word? Because I don't think it came across very clear.
Service.
Service. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah. A life is about service. Life is about giving back. And one thing that you said, and I always like to share, is that when you said we should be emptying ourselves into others, pouring into others. What folks don't realize is that there is a law of reciprocity that exists. And if you are someone who is a giver, if you are a giver of knowledge, a giver of love, a giver of all of these things that help to fulfill us, how nature is designed. It is designed to reciprocate. And so, even if you are pouring yourself out, best believe you are also receiving, which is why you can continue to pour. It's very difficult when you're doing that and you're living that type of life for you to ever be empty, ever. So I really love how you ended that. That was fantastic. Was there anything else in which you would like to share with our audience today?
Can I tell you one more story?
I love your stories. Go ahead.
So, as I mentioned, I've been battling cancer for the last 12 years. In 2018, I had my foot amputated. In 2020, I had my leg amputated. And I had a nurse recently ask me what it was like to have my appendages amputated. And I told her it certainly hasn't been easy. When you're 6'8", learning how to walk again, falling is not an option because you get hurt from this height. But what I told her was, cancer can take all my physical faculties, but cancer can't touch my mind, it can't touch my heart, and it can't touch my soul. And that's who I am. That's who you are, Toya. That's who everybody who's listening to us is. And we spend a tremendous amount of time working on this vessel, this body that we have. We go to the gym, we eat right, we get enough rest, we reduce stress. And I'm certainly not saying or suggesting that you don't do that. But what I am suggesting is maybe every day, spend a little more time working on who you really are, your heart, your mind, and your soul. We know we're going to die. We know this body's going to decay and go away.
Yeah.
But what will live on, what is eternal, is our heart, our mind, and our soul. And I just don't think we spend nearly as much time working on those things as we should.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Terry, this has been absolutely enriching. You are definitely a light within this world. You have definitely left a beautiful legacy. A beautiful legacy you are leaving, I should say, a beautiful legacy. And I do wish you much continued success in your recovery, success in your health, and continue to stay strong. Continue to
Thank you very much for having me on. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, folks, that's a wrap. Up next, the tangential mind. Hello, everyone. February is American Heart Month, a time to focus on the importance of heart health. Did you know that heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States? Take charge of your heart health by eating a balanced diet, staying active, managing stress, avoiding tobacco, and getting regular checkups. Small lifestyle changes can make a big difference, so let's work together to keep our hearts strong and healthy. Your heart matters, so take care of it today. To learn more about the American Heart Month, please visit heart.org. Join us in 2 weeks as we begin our next series on developing our critical thinking and decision-making skills. It is said that we possess two systems that drive the way we think: the fast, intuitive, and emotional system, and the slow, deliberate, and logical system. By understanding the interplay between these systems, we will learn to recognize and mitigate cognitive biases, make better decisions, and improve our overall cognitive abilities. We will learn about these two systems by reviewing the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Through engaging anecdotes and decades of research in psychology and behavioral economics, Daniel reveals how these systems shape our judgments, decisions, and biases, and offers valuable insights into human behavior and decision-making processes. We look forward to you joining us, and in preparation for our discussions, please visit Kinky Knots Cafe's approved book list to pick up a copy of the book. Details are enclosed in the description. To access all replays or learn more about Kinky Knots Cafe's Proactive is the Way, please visit www.kinkyknotscafe.com. Proactive is the way, my friends. Take good care.